Hey buddy, if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's begin the story. I never thought I'd be the kind of person with a story like this. If you asked me 2 years ago what the scariest thing in my life was, I probably would have said tuition bills, or maybe the fear of being stuck in my hometown forever. I wasn't somebody who believed in horror stories. Creeps, sure. Weird customers, yeah. But real fear, the kind that leaves your chest tight and your mind racing long after the moment has passed, I didn't think that was something I'd come face to face with, but it happened. And to this day, whenever I see a car parked too long in an empty lot, my stomach knots up in that same old way. My name's Ethan Miller, and back in 2018, I was 19, fresh out of high school, still trying to figure out if I even wanted to bother with college. My mom was pushing for it. My dad was mostly quiet on the matter, but neither of them was exactly offering to pay my way. Bills stacked quick, and the only way I could even consider saving up was by working as many hours as possible. That's how I ended up at a 7-Eleven in Clearwater, Ohio, a 24-hour store tucked on the corner of a busy intersection by day. But after 11 p.m., it felt like another planet, a fluorescent island surrounded by dark streets and half-dead strip malls. Most people hated the graveyard shift. Not me. At least, not at first. I liked the quiet. I liked that my manager wasn't breathing down my neck. I liked the weird comfort of that hum from the fridges lining the back wall and the soft buzz from the lights above. The pay was lousy, but it was steady, and I liked my coworkers, especially Rachel, who was 21 and way sharper than most people gave her credit for. She'd been at the store longer than me, maybe a year and a half, and kind of took me under her wing. She was funny, sarcastic, and not afraid to speak her mind, especially when it came to customers who gave us crap. But this story isn't really about me. It's about us. And one night in particular that I'll never forget. It was a Thursday in late September. Those nights always dragged. School was back in session, the summer crowd was gone, and by 11:30 p.m., the only people coming in were truckers, drunks, or the occasional college kid trying to buy beer with a fake ID. Rachel and I were working together that night. She was behind the counter, scrolling through her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, and I was restocking the chip aisle. "You know you're supposed to face those bags forward, right?" she called out, smirking. I held up a Doritos bag. "Wow, thank you for teaching me the sacred art of snack display. Truly, I am blessed." "Hey, don't get smart, rookie. I've been doing this crap way too long." She grinned, then yawned. "God, I hate Thursdays. They just never end." I was about to crack back with something when the door chimed. A man walked in. At first glance, he looked normal enough. Tall, maybe mid-50s, wearing a dark hoodie and a baseball cap. He moved slow, deliberate, and his eyes flicked around the store like he was scanning everything at once. I thought nothing of it at first. People wander in at all hours. That's just 7-Eleven life. But then I noticed how his gaze lingered. Not on the food, not on the drinks. On Rachel. She stiffened almost immediately. I could see it in her shoulders. She leaned closer to the register like she was trying to shrink into herself. I grabbed a box of Fritos, stood up straight, and kept one eye on him as he moved toward the coffee station. He didn't pour anything. Just stood there, fiddling with a cup, sneaking glances toward the counter. Rachel met my eyes for a split second. She didn't even have to say anything. I could read it clear as day. Something's wrong. After a few minutes of silence, the man finally walked up to the counter. He set down the empty cup like he'd forgotten he was supposed to fill it. "You work here long?" His voice was low, gravelly. Rachel cleared her throat. "A while. Coffee's over there if you want it filled." He ignored the suggestion, just smiled faintly. His teeth were crooked, yellow. "You from around here?" Rachel forced a polite smile. "Yeah, born and raised." "That's so." "Local girl." His eyes never left her face. "Pretty dangerous working nights all alone?" My skin prickled. I stepped up, pretending to check the lottery ticket machine right next to the counter. "She's not alone," I said casually. The man glanced at me for the first time. His stare was heavy, unsettling, before drifting right back to Rachel. "You should let me walk you to your car when you get off," he said, soft but direct. "Lots of bad people out here." Rachel swallowed hard. "I'll be fine. Thanks. The man didn't leave right away. He lingered, walked a slow lap around the store, pausing near the coolers, then the candy aisle, then the coffee again, always drifting back so he had a line of sight on Rachel. Every instinct in me screamed, something is off. When he finally did leave, the bell chimed and the door closed behind him. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. Rachel laughed nervously, though her hands shook as she adjusted the drawer. Creeps, you get used to it. But she didn't look used to it. She looked rattled. I checked the lot through the front windows. That's when I saw it. A dark sedan, parked way in the back, under the one dead light pole, engine idling, and inside the faint outline of that same man, watching. The story would now continue, stretching into tense buildups of him coming back. Rachel asking Ethan to walk with her, multiple encounters with dialogue, the eerie sense of being hunted, security being called, and the terrifying moment outside when the man waits in his car. His stare locked onto Ethan like a promise of violence. I'll build in their banter, Ethan's nervous humor, Rachel's growing fear, the exhaustion of working late nights, and the way a simple shift turns into something unforgettable. The pacing will slow in the middle with long descriptions of aisles, the smell of coffee and floor cleaner, fluorescent buzzing, then ramp sharply into the climax outside. The ending will mirror your request. Ethan narrowly avoids the man, security intervenes, and the night ends with that bone-deep fear that he hasn't seen the last of him. When the lot was finally empty and I sat in my car, doors locked, I couldn't shake the weight of his stare, like he'd branded me somehow, like he was still out there. Rachel quit the night shift a week later. I don't blame her. Me? I stuck around for a few months, but every single night after that, I checked the lot before walking out. And even now, years later, I'll be filling my tank at some random gas station, glance up, and my chest will tighten at the sight of an old sedan under a streetlight, because some stares don't ever leave you. And some people, you just know they're waiting. Story 2. I never thought I'd end up working the night shift at a call center, but life doesn't exactly hand you choices wrapped up neatly. At 24, I was living paycheck to paycheck in Willow Creek, Oregon, a mid-sized town that had just enough people to keep businesses alive, but small enough that things went quiet after dark. Too quiet sometimes. Rent wasn't cheap, and I'd already burned through 3 different jobs that year. So when my cousin told me that a nationwide towing dispatch company was hiring overnight operators, I applied. The job was simple on paper. Answer calls, log stranded motorists, send out the nearest available tow truck. Nothing glamorous, but it paid on time. Our office sat on the edge of an industrial park, surrounded by dentist offices, tax prep buildings, and insurance agencies. All of them pitch black after 6 p.m. The only sign of life at night was the 7-Eleven across the street. The glow of that green and red neon sign was like a lighthouse in a dead sea. And then there was Marcus. Marcus was my coworker, same age as me, maybe a year older. A stocky guy with a sarcastic streak who never seemed to take anything seriously. We worked the same overnight shifts most weeks, and for better or worse, he made those long hours tolerable. He'd crack jokes, bring energy drinks, and we'd kill time with dumb YouTube videos when the phones went dead. Still, every night I stepped outside that office, I felt a weird twinge. Maybe it was the silence, the way empty parking lots and locked buildings seemed to swallow sound. Maybe it was the memory of that one time a homeless guy jumped me near the dumpsters, back when I first started. Either way, I never fully relaxed out there, no matter how many nights passed. That's why, when everything went to hell at 7-Eleven, it felt like my worst fear finally manifesting. It was a Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning, around 1:50 a.m. Calls were dead. Marcus leaned back in his chair, tossing a pen in the air. Man, he muttered, if I have to hear one more person whine about their transmission at 2 in the morning, I'm just walking into traffic. I smirked. Pretty sure you just get hit by one of our customers. Exactly, job security. He caught the pen, grinned, then glanced at the clock. Break? Yeah, why not? We locked up, slipped our key cards back into our lanyards, and stepped out into the parking lot. The night air was cool, still carrying the faint smell of rain. The 7-Eleven sign buzzed across the street, its neon flickering faintly. Marcus stretched, pulling out his vape. You grabbing snacks? Thinking about it. Cool. I'm in the mood for some nasty-ass nachos. I rolled my eyes and we started across the street. Just another slow night. Nothing unusual. Until the car. It came out of nowhere. A black sedan whipping around the corner too fast, its tires squealing as it shot into the 7-Eleven lot. The brakes screamed as it jerked to a stop right in front of the doors. Damn, Marcus said. Somebody's in a hurry. Drunk, probably, I said, though the hairs on my arms stood up. The driver's side door flew open, and a man stepped out. Ski mask, dark hoodie, gun in his hand. My stomach dropped. Holy shit, Marcus whispered. Before either of us moved, a second guy jumped out of the passenger seat. Same mask, same dark clothes. They ran inside the store. Through the glass, I caught sight of them waving their weapons, shouting at the cashier. I froze. My brain wanted to make it unreal, a prank, a joke. But there was nothing fake about the way the cashier threw up his hands, the way one of the robbers shoved the barrel of his gun at his chest. Back to the office, I hissed. Marcus nodded, eyes wide, and we turned, quick steps toward the building. That's when one of them looked up, saw us. The second masked man came bursting out of the 7-Eleven like a bullet, head snapping left and right until his eyes locked on us. Run, Marcus said. We ran. Our office wasn't far, maybe 150 feet. But in that moment, it might as well have been a mile. I could hear them behind us, shoes slapping the pavement, one of them shouting something I couldn't make out. Marcus was faster. He pulled ahead, reaching the steps of our building, fumbling for the keypad. Come on, he muttered, jabbing in the code. I was just a few feet away when something slammed into me from behind. I hit the ground hard, my chin bouncing off the concrete. Pain flared through my jaw. The guy was on me instantly, clawing at my jacket. Got you, he snarled. Panic exploded in my chest. I kicked wildly, my heel connecting with his stomach. He grunted, loosening his grip just enough for me to scramble free. Get up, Marcus screamed. Come on! I stumbled to my feet, half dizzy, and threw myself toward the door. Marcus had it open just enough for me to slip inside. The robber lunged, jamming his hand through the gap, fingers clawing at the air. Help me, Marcus shouted. Together we shoved against the door, my shoulder slamming the frame. The guy on the other side roared, pushing back, his fingers grazing my arm. And then, bang! A gunshot cracked the night. The sound rattled my skull. The man outside cursed, yanking his arm back. We seized the chance, slamming the door shut, locking it fast. Silence, except for the thundering of my heartbeat. I staggered backward, chest heaving. Holy shit, Marcus gasped. Holy shit! Holy shit! Through the narrow glass windows, I saw them, both of them, standing outside, masks on, one with the gun still raised. The first guy slammed his fist into the glass. Bang! Another hit. The window spiderwebbed with cracks. They're not leaving, Marcus whispered. Back office, now. We sprinted deeper into the office, past empty cubicles and silent phones, until we reached the small security office in the back. Solid wood door, steel sheet inside, deadbolt. We locked ourselves in and collapsed against the wall. I yanked out my phone, hands shaking, dialing 911. 911, what's your emergency? 2 men, armed. They're trying to break into our office. We're at Willow Creek Towing Dispatch on Maple Avenue. Are you in a safe location? I almost laughed. It was the same line I ask callers every night. We're in a back office, door locked. Please, hurry. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. They're gonna get in, man. They shot the keypad, didn't you hear? They're trying to get through. I heard it too. Muffled thuds, the metallic clatter of someone messing with the lock. Then another gunshot. The door frame rattled. I pressed the phone tighter. They're shooting the locks. Units are on the way, the dispatcher said calmly. Stay where you are. Marcus laughed, this wild, broken sound. Stay where we are? Lady, we're screwed if they get in. I put a finger to my lips. Outside, I heard voices. Low, urgent, footsteps circling the building. And then, silence. The worst sound of all. Minutes stretched like hours. My chest ached from holding my breath. Every creak of the building sounded like footsteps. Then, sirens. Red and blue light flashed across the slats of the blinds. Marcus exhaled hard, almost sobbing. "Oh, thank God! Oh, my God!" A voice thundered through the building. "Police! Come out with your hands visible." We unlocked the door, stepping out slowly. The front lobby was wrecked. Bullet holes in the frame, shattered glass across the floor. But the robbers were gone. The cops swept the area, flashlights cutting into the night, but they'd vanished into the streets. "Lucky you're alive," one officer muttered, eyeing the bullet holes. "Yeah," Marcus said, voice flat. "Lucky." The next half hour blurred. Questions, statements, the click of cameras as they documented the damage. An officer pointed out the smear of blood on the pavement where I'd hit the ground. Another photographed the keypad, twisted and ruined from the gunshot. Our boss showed up around 3:30, hair messy, shirt half tucked. He looked at the damage, sighed deeply, and rubbed his face. "Jesus, boys," he muttered. "You okay?" I nodded, though my hands still shook. Marcus just stared at the shattered door, jaw tight. "You're done for the night," our boss said. "Go home. Paid leave until this gets sorted." We didn't argue. Marcus drove me home in silence. When I locked my apartment door behind me, I finally let out a shaky breath and realized something. If we'd been a few seconds slower, they would have killed us. No doubt in my mind. And even now, sometimes late at night, when I pass by that glowing 7-Eleven sign, my chest tightens. Because I know those men are still out there, and I know exactly what they wanted. It wasn't just money. It was blood. Story 3, I never liked working nights, but bills didn't care about my preferences. Back in 2017, I was 23 and broke, living in a one-bedroom apartment outside of Cleveland, Ohio. The cheapest job I could find at the time was night clerk at the Sunset Motor Lodge, a worn-down roadside motel off Route 46. The place had seen better days, if it ever really had them. The neon sign buzzed constantly, half the letters burned out. Only about 10 of the 20 rooms ever got rented, mostly to truckers or people passing through. I was the only one on duty at night. I told myself it was easy money. Sit behind the front desk, check people in, maybe mop the lobby floor. But the truth, those 12 hours felt like stepping into another world. The silence pressed in heavy. The highway was a black ribbon outside, and every creak of the building made me feel watched. It was a Friday night in late October. The air outside was sharp with cold, the kind that stung your lungs. Around midnight, a car pulled up, an old tan Buick, headlights dim. The man who came inside looked wrong. Not in an obvious way. He was tall, mid-40s maybe, with a heavy coat and leather gloves. But his eyes, I'll never forget them. Wide, bloodshot, scanning every corner of the lobby like he was expecting something to jump out at him. "Need a room," he said flatly, voice rough. I nodded, pulling the ledger closer. "One night?" "Yeah. Cash." He slapped a few bills down. His hands shook. I gave him room 12, far end of the lot. He didn't take the key right away, just stared at me, unblinking, until I finally slid it across the counter. Then he snatched it, turned, and walked out without another word. By 1:30 a.m., I'd convinced myself he was just another weirdo traveler. But then came the noise. A bang, loud enough that I shot upright in my chair. It came from outside near the far rooms. I grabbed the flashlight from under the desk and stepped out onto the lot. The cold hit me like a slap. The Buick was still parked outside room 12. Its trunk was open. "Hello?" I called. No answer. Another sound, this time from inside the room. A thud, followed by something dragging. My pulse hammered. I stood frozen for a long moment, then forced myself back inside. Locked the lobby door. Told myself to mind my own damn business. At 2:15, the lobby door rattled violently. I jumped, heart in my throat. It was a woman, late 20s, blonde hair tangled, wearing a torn sweatshirt. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. "Please," she gasped. "You have to help me. He's crazy, Before she could finish, headlights flooded the lot. The Buick. Her eyes went wide with terror. She shoved past me, ducking behind the desk. "Don't let him see me, please." The car door slammed. Heavy footsteps approached. And then the man was there, standing in front of the glass doors, staring in. My blood turned to ice. He looked at me, then slowly scanned the lobby until his eyes stopped on the corner where the woman hid. His expression never changed, but something in his gaze made my stomach churn. "Open the door," he said. My hand hovered over the lock, trembling. "Sir, maybe you should open the door." His voice was calm, too calm. The woman shook her head violently, whispering, "Don't, don't. He'll kill me." That's when I saw it, the handle of a knife sticking out of his coat pocket. He suddenly lunged at the glass, pounding with both fists. The door rattled in its frame. The woman screamed. I grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "911, what's your emergency?" "There's a man. He's trying to break into the Sunset Motor Lodge lobby. He's armed." The pounding grew louder, harder. The glass spiderwebbed with cracks. The operator told me to stay calm. Units were on the way. But all I could think was that the glass wouldn't hold. The woman grabbed my arm. "There's a back office. Lock it now." We ran, slamming the heavy door shut behind us. The woman sobbed quietly in the corner while I pressed the phone to my ear, whispering updates to the dispatcher. Outside, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the lobby. He was inside. Minutes dragged. The only sounds were my breathing and the woman's muffled cries. Then, silence. No footsteps, no pounding, nothing. The dispatcher said officers were close, but the silence was worse than the noise. It felt like he was right outside the door, listening. And then, a voice. Software, almost sing-song. "You can't hide forever." The woman clutched my sleeve, shaking violently. I thought I might pass out from fear. Finally, after what felt like hours but must have been only minutes, red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. "Police! Come out with your hands up!" Relief flooded me so hard I nearly collapsed. The cops stormed the lobby, weapons drawn. They found the man crouched near the hallway, knife still in hand. He didn't fight, just smiled as they cuffed him. The woman clung to me, whispering, "Thank you," over and over. Later, I learned she'd hitched a ride with him earlier that night. He'd turned violent, pulled the knife, and she barely escaped from the room before he caught her again. If she hadn't run to the lobby, I don't want to think about it. The motel shut down a year later. Too much bad press. Too many people creeped out to stay there after what happened. Sometimes I drive past Route 46 at night. The neon sign is gone, the building boarded up. But when I close my eyes, I can still hear it. That soft voice in the silence. You can't hide forever. Story 4. I never planned on working the graveyard shift. Nobody ever really does. But life doesn't exactly care what you plan. Back in 2019, I was 24, broke, and barely holding things together. College hadn't worked out the way I thought it would. My old car was on its last legs, rent was late almost every month, and my credit cards were maxed out. So when I saw a "Help Wanted" sign taped up in the window of Redline Diner, a 24-hour place off the highway just outside of Dayton, Ohio, I took it. The job was simple. Wipe down tables, refill coffee, keep the overnight regulars happy, and pray the hours passed fast. The tips weren't great, but it was something. The diner itself was a time capsule. Checkerboard floors, sticky red booths, and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. At night, it got quiet. Too quiet. Between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., maybe a handful of truckers or insomniacs wandered in. The rest of the time, it was just me, a cook named Derek in the back, and the constant hum of the neon sign outside. Most nights felt the same, until the one that didn't. Working nights messes with your head. The whole world feels flipped upside down. While everyone else is asleep, you're awake under fluorescent lights, trying to pretend it's normal to pour coffee at 3 a.m. Sometimes I'd stare out the big front windows at the empty parking lot and feel this unease, like something was watching from the dark fields beyond the highway. I knew it was just my tired brain, but that didn't make it go away. The only thing that kept me sane was Derek. He was 30, tattooed and gruff, but he had this easy way of making jokes at the worst times. He'd worked the diner for years, Nothing happens out here, man, he'd say. Scariest thing you'll see is a raccoon in the dumpster. But Derek was wrong. It was late November, a Tuesday night bleeding into Wednesday morning, cold enough that the windows fogged on the inside. Around 1:45 a.m., a man walked in. He was tall, gaunt, wearing a gray hoodie with the hood pulled low. He slid into a booth near the door, never taking his hands out of his pockets. His eyes, I don't know how to explain it. They didn't just look tired, they looked empty. I grabbed my notepad, forced a smile, and walked over. Evening. Coffee? He nodded slowly. His voice when he spoke was low and gravelly. Black. As I poured, I noticed his hands trembling under the table. Not just from cold, from something else. You passing through? I asked, trying to be polite. He didn't answer, just stared at me, expressionless. I backed off, leaving him to his coffee. From the kitchen window, Derek gave me a look. Creeper? He mouthed. I shrugged. But deep down, yeah, creeper. Around 2:10 a.m., the bell above the door jingled again. This time, two men walked in, both in dark clothes, both with masks, pulled up like beanies for now. They didn't sit, didn't order. They just stood in the entrance, scanning the room. Something in my gut screamed wrong. The man in the booth, the gray hoodie guy, glanced up at them. His eyes widened, just a fraction, and then he slid lower in his seat, like he wanted to disappear. The two newcomers spotted him instantly. One of them spoke, voice sharp, clipped. There you are. My blood froze. It happened fast. The men yanked their masks down, black ski masks, and suddenly guns were out, glinting under the fluorescent lights. Don't move, one barked. Derek cursed from the kitchen. I stood frozen, coffee pot trembling in my hands. The man in the booth bolted. He shoved the table, sending the cup shattering, and sprinted for the back hallway. The masked men shouted, charging after him. Call 911, Derek hissed. My hands fumbled for my phone. But before I could dial, one of the masked men whipped around, gun raised. Don't! I froze. My heart slammed so hard I thought I'd collapse right there. The other man had already disappeared down the hallway after the stranger's shouts echoed, scuffling, crashing. Then a scream high, piercing, choked off suddenly. The gunman near me jerked his head toward the noise. Finish him! I don't know if it was instinct or terror, but I bolted. I ran through the kitchen, Derek shouting behind me. I didn't stop. Pushed through the back door into the freezing night air. The parking lot stretched empty, lit by flickering sodium lamps. My breath came in clouds. My shoes slapped the pavement loud as gunshots. Behind me, shouting, heavy footsteps. Stop! Stop or I'll shoot! I didn't dare look back. My brain screamed, just run. Across the lot, the field stretched dark and endless. No cover. The only option was the office building across the road. An old tax prep business, dark and locked but closer than the fields. I sprinted. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But the footsteps behind me didn't slow. A gunshot cracked the air. The sound tore through me. For a split second, I thought I'd been hit. But I kept running. The front door of the office building was locked. I yanked at it desperately, heart crashing in my chest. Footsteps thundered closer. I spun, ready to fight. When Derek's voice cut through the night. Over here! He'd run around from the diner, holding the heavy steel bar we used for the dumpster lid. The gunman skidded to a stop, eyes narrowing. For a moment, it was a standoff. Me pressed against the locked door. Derek gripping the bar, the man with the gun aiming between us. Then sirens wailed in the distance. The gunman cursed. He backed away, mask shifting as he turned. A second later, headlights from a black SUV screeched into the lot. The men piled in, tires screaming as they tore down the highway. The cops flooded in minutes later, guns drawn, flashlights slicing the dark. They found the stranger in the back hallway of the diner, dead, stabbed, shot. I didn't ask which. We gave our statements, shaking, exhausted. The police said the men were part of a crew wanted for multiple robberies across 3 states. They thought the stranger was one of them who double-crossed, tried to run, and we'd just been caught in the middle. I quit the diner a week later. Couldn't do it anymore. Every creak of the building, Every car pulling into the lot sent my chest into overdrive. Sometimes I drive past Red Line Diner on Route 75. The neon sign still hums. People still drink coffee at 2 a.m., like nothing ever happened. But when I close my eyes, I still hear that scream from the back hallway. Still feel the echo of that gunshot in my bones. And I know one thing for certain. If those sirens hadn't come when they did, I wouldn't be here to tell you this story. Story 5. I never thought working at a 7-Eleven would be dangerous. Back in 2017, I was 23, broke, and desperate for a paycheck. The graveyard shift wasn't glamorous. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., just me, a humming row of refrigerators, and the occasional drunk stumbling in for chips and cigarettes. Most nights were dead quiet. But that one night, it started normal. The store sat on the corner of an empty road in a suburb outside Phoenix. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing the aisles in pale yellow. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee. By 2 a.m., the place was empty except for me behind the counter. I leaned on the register, scrolling through my phone, pretending not to hear the ice machine groaning again. Then the door chimed. A man walked in. He wore a faded hoodie, the hood pulled low, hands jammed in the pocket. He moved slow, too slow, like he was scanning the place. "Evening," I said, forcing a polite smile. He didn't answer, just wandered to the back cooler, staring at the glass like he couldn't decide on a drink. His reflection in the door looked wrong somehow. His eyes didn't meet mine. When he finally came up to the counter, he placed a single bottle of water down. His hands shook slightly. "That all?" I asked. He nodded, whispered, "Yeah." But before I could ring him up, the door chimed again. Two men walked in, masks pulled up like beanies, and the stranger froze. The masked men didn't look at me. They looked at him. "There you are," one said. The stranger's face went pale. He bolted, not for the door, but toward the stockroom in the back. The masked men drew guns and chased after him. I stood frozen, register drawer half open, my pulse hammering so loud I thought it would burst. Then one of them turned back, pointing his gun straight at me. "Don't!" My breath caught in my throat. From the back of the store came crashing sounds. Shelves knocked over, a scream muffled, then cut off. The gunman at the counter barked at his partner. "Finish it!" I don't know what possessed me, but I ran. I bolted through the side emergency exit, the alarm shrieking as I stumbled into the dark parking lot. The air was cold, my breath ragged. Footsteps thundered behind me. "Stop or I'll shoot!" I didn't stop. My shoes pounded asphalt as I tore across the lot toward the gas pumps. The overhead lights buzzed, casting long, sharp shadows. Then, a gunshot. The sound ripped through the night. I dove behind a pump, hard in my throat, praying I wouldn't feel the burn of a bullet. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard something else. Sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Red and blue lights flickered against the windows of the store. The masked men swore. One sprinted out of the store toward a waiting SUV at the curb. The other followed, yanking his mask down. In seconds, they were gone. The lot was empty again, save for the wail of alarms and the flashing lights. The police found the stranger in the stockroom. Dead, shot and stabbed. Turns out he'd been part of their crew, had run with them on robberies but double-crossed and tried to disappear. They tracked him down to my store, and I just happened to be working that night. I quit a week later. Couldn't stand the hum of the coolers anymore. Couldn't stand the way every customer's face looked suspicious. But sometimes when I drive past that 7-Eleven, the neon sign buzzing against the dark, I remember that night, the echo of the gunshot, the way the stranger's eyes looked, hollow and afraid. And I know if those sirens had been even a minute later, I wouldn't be here. Story 6. I used to work nights at a 7-Eleven off Highway 19 in New Jersey. I lasted only 2 months, not because of the drunks, the addicts, or the occasional shoplifter, but because of what I saw. My shift was always the same, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. By 2 a.m., the roads outside would be empty, and the store would feel like it wasn't connected to the rest of the world anymore. Just me, the hum of refrigerators, and the constant flicker of one broken ceiling light in aisle 3. The cameras never worked properly. The manager said corporate wouldn't pay for real upgrades, so it was just me, alone. It was around 3:15 a.m. when I noticed him. A man standing by the freezer at the back. Tall, thin, dressed in a long black coat. I thought maybe he'd come in while I was distracted restocking gum. But the door never chimed. He just stood there motionless, staring at the glass doors of the freezer. "Hey," I called. My voice cracked. "We're closing soon on that aisle. Need anything?" No answer. When I blinked, he was gone. I walked back there, heart racing, but the aisle was empty. No footprints on the freshly mopped floor. Nothing. It didn't stop. Every shift, same time. 3:15 a.m. I'd see him, always by the freezer, never moving. Sometimes his head would tilt, like he was staring at me through the reflection in the glass. Sometimes I swore I saw his lips moving, whispering. Once when I walked back to check, the freezer door was open. Frosty air poured out. Inside, the shelves were empty, except for one item. A single bottle of water. But the label was wrong. It wasn't 7-Eleven brand. It looked old, yellowed, like it had been there for decades. When I touched it, the plastic crumbled in my hand like ash. One night I got desperate. I decided to check the security footage. Fast forwarded to 3:15 a.m. And there he was. The man in the coat standing by the freezer. Clear as day. But when I looked closer, my stomach dropped. He wasn't standing on the floor. His shoes hovered an inch above it, and his face, blurry, like static. The footage froze. The screen went black. Then every monitor flickered on at once, showing only one image. The freezer, door wide open, and inside, me. I quit the next day, handed in my badge, told my manager I couldn't handle night shifts. He didn't even argue, just gave me a tired look and said, "You lasted longer than the last guy." I froze. What happened to him? The manager shrugged. Didn't show up one morning. Police found his car in the lot. Keys still in the ignition. Never found him. That was 3 years ago. But sometimes late at night, I'll drive past that 7-Eleven. And if I glance in through the windows, I swear I can see him, still standing by the freezer, waiting.